This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for November 12th, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. If we could please start by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Well, we will get our meeting started. Right now, we do have a quorum. I'm hoping Stephen will come. John, I believe, is on his way back from a business trip, and he probably won't join us, or if he doesn't, might join in on the Zoom, because I think he's kind of in between airports or on the way home from one. So we can keep on going. I don't know if we have any, perfect timing. Do we have anyone here for open time for the public offhand? It is not on the agenda. Don't see anyone. So with that, we'll just start right in with new business. And we've got two very quick things to do before we have our tax hearing. We have two appointments tonight, and we happen to have both people in the room. So we have an appointment for Bruce Bowman to be on the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee. Bruce, since you're here, why don't you stand up and tell us a little bit about yourself?
So Bruce Bowman, 202 Pomeroy Meadow Road, here in town just over a year. Prior career was in healthcare as a physician assistant in pediatric orthopedics for 37 years, and now retired and looking to be involved. Still doing pediatrics with my grandchildren. But
very good.
Thank
good.
you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, we are definitely in need of someone on the grant committee. This is the grant season, so I am pleased to have you step up. So could we have a motion, please?
I move to accept the application of Bruce Bowman to be appointed to the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee, term to end 6/30/26.
All right, could I have a second, please? Second by Dan. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. So be it. You will just need to get very quick, right? And you'll just need to catch up with our town clerk and get sworn in. So before we have a meeting, otherwise you won't be a voting member until that point, okay? And we have a second one this evening. We have Kimberly Kuplas, and maybe, I know this is for the Board of Assessors, I believe. So Cindy, if you want to say a couple words, but then we'll have Kimberly come on up.
Yes, thank you. As chairperson of the Board of Assessors, we, as I've reported in several previous select board meetings, we're missing one individual to work to sort of flesh out our three-person board. And Kimberly and I spoke, and I was very impressed by her energy and her interest and her background. And I will just tell you one aspect of her background that's very attractive to the Board of Assessors is the fact that she's got a lengthy career so far in real estate, and that's a really important one. It's in the past, the Board of Assessors have had realtors, and it has been immensely helpful to the board. She's also attended, I think, 3 meetings at this point prior to being appointed, and continued to ask really good questions and bring in some of her background knowledge. I always appreciate when somebody asks questions. So I strongly support Kimberly for this appointment, and I do believe the other member of the board has expressed the same kind of support, and that's Linda Green. She's not here right now.
Okay, so with that, now that Cindy's said everything, sorry, Bruce, I should have given a better eulogy here. I apologize.
Eulogy.
Yeah. No, really. Kimberly, why don't you go up?
So, Kimberly Kuplas, 328 College Highway, Southampton. I've been a resident here for 23 years. My husband and I have raised 2 children here. In that time, I volunteered on the library board and was involved in the sports in the town as well. And as Cindy said, I have had my real estate license now for 23 years. And I'm excited to be involved and give back and also learn and also give my knowledge of whatever I can do to help out.
Super, good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, so Cindy, was that a motion, or you want to
I can do that. I can move that we, the Board of, Select Board, appoint Kimberly Kuplas to be on the Board of Assessors.
Okay, term to expire.
Oh, yeah, term to expire 5/20/25.
Second. Okay, and just for clarity, that is until the next election, because that's actually an elected position.
Okay.
So we can appoint you only until the next town election.
Okay.
In this case, and then you'll have to decide what you do at that point in
Okay.
time. Okay. All right, any comments, questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, good. Thank you both very much, Bruce and Kimberly, for stepping up. It's a busy time of year, and we look forward to having extra people on our committees to help us get through all the challenges that face us at the present time.
Can we go to the CPC meeting?
No,
Okay.
no, that's fine. I don't think it's that crucial. Okay. We have, we're going to have our hazard mitigation plan public meeting, but not until 7 o'clock. So the goal is to go through our regular itinerary as much as we can, our regular agenda rather, as far as we can. And then when we get to 7 o'clock, we'll actually stop and turn it over to the hazard mitigation plan portion of the meeting. So with that, next up, we actually have our assessor, Dave Zagorski, here. This is our actual presentation for our tax hearing. Now, I don't know, was this going to be does it have to be a public hearing per se? We didn't actually announce it as such, but.
It just has to be posted with a meeting.
Okay,
They
so it's
they
posted.
changed the rules a couple of years ago,
Okay,
so.
so we don't have to do that, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty informal nowadays.
Okay. So we'll rely on you to explain to us what's happening with our taxes for the coming year, and,
Well, this is basically just to determine a couple things in order to get to the tax rate setting. Your main option right now is to vote on whether to do a single or split tax rate. The Board of Assessors does recommend a single tax rate, as 118 of the 351 communities in Massachusetts have adopted a split tax rate, but it is typically recommended that communities have at least a commercial base of at least 20% for a split tax rate. We have roughly 6%, so adopting a split tax rate would kind of drive a lot of businesses out of town. The second option for consideration is to do an open space discount. We have no properties that qualify under the Code 200 open space. It's typically private land that is protected. And again, we don't have any land that qualifies under that. And actually, I don't know of any town around here that does. I've actually talked to a mentor of mine and who's been working in the assessor field for a lot longer than I have, and she's never done a town that had open space as well.
just as a question there, that sounds like, from the definition you gave us here, it's land not under public ownership. So we do have a lot of chapter land and APR land in Southampton, but because it's not.
Right, yeah, it's typically, if it doesn't, typically, I think if it doesn't typically classify as chapter land or, it's basically, it's land that is protected, and it's under Code 200, which we don't have any land that classified under that. It's either commercial land or public land, private land, chapter land. So.
Can I insert at this point that when the Board of Assessors reviewed this in preparation for tonight's meeting, we asked for a kind of the same questions, Chris, because it looks kind of like, why not? Well, it looks like we have a lot of open space and we have a town-owned land. And Dave did some pretty significant research and provided us, he kind of did a shortened definition here on our paperwork, but the Board of Assessors were comfortable and convinced that our community did not fall under this classification for open space discount. And I think he's added that only one community in the state of Mass does qualify, and I think that was on Cape Cod, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So consequently, we the Board of Assessors didn't believe that this was to be disputed. We agree with what Dave is presenting to us now.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. The other consideration is adoption of a residential exemption, which is basically properties that are the principal residence of the taxpayer on January 1st. Adopting a residential exemption increases the residential tax rate to other moderately valued homes, apartments, summer homes, and higher valued homes. Typically, it's communities that have a large number of apartment buildings or second homes that would adopt a residential exemption. So the Board of Assessors, again, recommends no residential exemption be given. And then the last one is adoption of the small commercial exemption, which is commercial properties that are occupied by businesses that have an average annual employment of no more than 10 people and an assessed valuation of less than $1 million. There's only 14 communities in Massachusetts that currently have the small commercial exemption. And again, it's typically recommended that towns that have a 20% commercial value base. So the assessors recommend no small commercial exemption.
So basically, we're 93% residential.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Anyone have any, so the recommendation is that we keep on with the single tax rate. Single tax rate rather than a split tax rate.
Correct. Yep. And then no on the other three.
Okay. And then what would be, once we take a vote on this tonight, what are the next steps that you go through then?
Right now, we're waiting on the accountant and the town clerk to fill out their portion of the tax rate recap in order to determine what the tax rate is. And then once they fill all those out, then we submit everything to the Department of Revenue and they review it, and then hopefully we have a tax rate. So.
Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of these, the new growth and the value of the single home
let's
here in
see.
town? Since you gave us that information, it's good for the public to hear this.
Yeah, so our values this year as opposed to last year, we did see a 3.5% increase overall in residential properties. Last year we were at 914,037,500. This year we're seeing an increase to 945,611,900.
That's the assessed value of a single-family home.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. That's the total. Total value. Yeah.
Could you spell out those numbers a little more clearly? Because it's 945 million.
Yeah, 945,611,900.
Is their current assessed value of our single-family residential?
That's the total residential single families. Yes.
And that's a 3.5% increase.
Increase. Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
great. Thanks, Scott.
There you go.
Yeah, people can watch it too. Yeah, good.
The average assessment for a single family home is 433,171. We did see a large increase in new growth for fiscal 25 at 14,491,055, which equates to 206,498 in tax revenue, and that is a 1.25% increase over our 3-year average.
Okay. Good to hear. And can you maybe mention, I don't know if you have an idea, what has contributed to us capturing that new growth? Is that something that we're catching up on? Is that really
A lot of it was there was a lot of new homes that went up this year, but also we had hired a consultant to go out and pick up in the summer. We had hired Matt Fontaine to go out and pick up. We have to review the town over a 10-year period, so he did one section of town. So a lot of that was what he had picked up. So.
Dave, did you also use Nearmap for some?
I did, yes. A lot of it was also with Nearmap as well. So.
Nearmap is similar to Google Earth. It doesn't. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
It's an
GIS
expert
tool.
on
It actually it has a satellite image, or not satellite image, but a aerial view, and we can kind of look at properties and pick up
Yeah.
pools and decks and stuff like that.
So
So,
if I added my swimming pool, you would have found me then.
yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
All right. So we need to, is there a vote we need to take on this, or?
Yeah, you need to vote on doing a single tax rate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a single tax rate for commercial and residential properties in town.
All right.
For
Motion by
fiscal
Dan,
year.
can I have a second?
For fiscal 25.
For fiscal 20,
Thank you.
fiscal 25?
Yep.
Okay. Second by Stephen. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you just need to do no open space discount, no residential exemption, and no small commercial
Okay,
exemption.
let's make a second motion on that.
And David, my understanding is that that's no change from our current.
Correct, yeah, we've been doing that for years and years.
Sounds complicated, but just
Yeah.
steer in a straight course.
Okay, could we have a second motion on the no parks then, Cindy, or somebody? That we would not, we would,
I'd like to make a motion that we do not include a open space discount. We do not include adoption of the residential exemption increase, and we have no small commercial exemption. Did I get them all?
Yes.
Second.
all right, motion by Dan, second by Cindy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
All right.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, appreciate it. Okay. All right, next up, I think we're on to town administrator report. Scott.
I think I lost my copy. Just bring it up, though.
Want my copy?
Oh, that's okay. Got it right here.
This one right here.
Actually, I might, yeah.
Sure.
For some reason, I can't find the file.
Okay.
So we will have the outside sidewalk is scheduled for next week. Should take about 3 days' work. If everything goes as planned, it'll start probably Monday or Tuesday and last for 3 days. So we're just gonna have to have some temporary detour signs for the public to enter through the long sidewalk along the side of the building that starts at Council on Aging. And then the 2 drop boxes will be unavailable for the treasurer and the collector. So we'll make some arrangements for that as well. So it'll be closed off for about 2 to 3 days. The lighting upgrades have been completed for the library and the police station as of today, and they are expected to start town hall tomorrow, and that should take a couple of days. We also met with the subcontractors for the North School's HVAC controls for them to go through everything and schedule it, and they're looking to schedule it for later December when school's out, so it won't interfere with any of the heating. I'm going to be meeting with Dreamers Dispensary later this week to go over the host agreement. I do want to announce that we have a tentative agreement in place with Local 98 IUCE, which is our highway department union. We do have a quick board committee meeting that I scheduled for Thursday night, just for any board or committee that has a budget, like library, assessors, things like that. So I just asked for one person from each board or committee to attend, just so I can go over the new process, go over the documents, the forms, how to submit things.
Is it going to be in person or Zoom?
Zoom.
Zoom, okay.
And then the all alcohol license for Pure Foods Market received a favorable recommendation at the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure on Friday. So that's going to move before the entire
That's an encouraging
General
sign,
court.
at least. Yeah, good. Okay, very good. All right, any other questions of Scott on those few things? Okay. All right.
Actually, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the budget work, do you think with the Conservation Commission, because we have a budget, should they attend? Should I make sure they're aware?
Well, you should take care of it tonight. So I'm going to go over it really quickly tonight for the select board.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can double as that.
Okay, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think that's the key, that, we'll have it, I guess, tonight, but then all the boards and commissions and committees that have a budget or usually present a budget to us for the next fiscal year should be in attendance or have somebody representing them at this meeting. So we're definitely swapping out the old budget system and putting in something that I think is going to be a lot more transparent and hopefully a little bit clearer for everybody to understand. So we're looking forward to these innovations. But good. All right. How about a few select board reports? Want to start down this way for a change? Stephen, what's up? Anything?
Nothing, in part because I tried, no, that's old news, as before in the last meeting.
Yeah, we're a couple weeks.
Nothing to report. Dan can report on the planning board.
Okay. All right. We'll go that way then. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll start with the Conservation Commission. So we voted to bring a bylaw change proposal forward around our quorum because we've had issues with getting enough people to join the committee. So getting quorum to be able to vote on things has been difficult. So we're wanting to change the way we do quorum to be the number of active, not the number of total possible members. We also brought forth some questions on naming approval for some trails in town. I think there was a response back from Chris. Better answer on that one. Planning board, the two things for this board to know. One, we reviewed the scenic road for Manhan, scenic bylaw as it applies to the Manhan Road. This was in reference to Eversource and the moving of some power lines. It was the decision of the planning board that the scenic road bylaw does not apply in this case because the Eversource is proposing to go under the road to install this power line, meaning there won't be any change to any of the walls, the stone walls, or any of the trees along the roadway. So
Just a point of clarity on that, Dan. There is no actual scenic road bylaw. There is an MGL, but there is no bylaw in town. So that is something the bylaw committee will be glad to take up. So
Absolutely,
we'll do
thank you. That was another thing the planning board wanted to recommend, is having that committee look into it so that it's clear.
Yeah, apparently it's a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, so it falls in our purview. Yeah.
Some towns have each,
Do they?
one of each.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay. We'll check that out. Yeah.
And the second thing to note is there was a little more talk from PBPC and Patty Gambarini around the Water Supply Protection District. And there's, I believe, a meeting at the library on the 13th of representatives from a couple towns.
We actually had to reschedule it to here.
Oh, okay, but I think you're going to represent us at that? Okay, great.
Is this the BAPAC, the Barnes Aquifer Committee? Oh, good. Okay.
So those are the items I had to mention.
All right. Okay. Cindy?
A little bit more, Dan?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Each of your committees took up a really important matter. A Chapter 61 withdrawal.
Oh, right, there was a discussion
It
of,
was not on the agenda for the planning board, however, action is taken, I know.
yeah, there was discussion of a property on Pomeroy Meadow. It was getting withdrawn from Chapter 61, so the town has the right of first refusal. So that property comes to the Conservation Commission as well as the Planning Board. The Conservation Commission saw there was no wetlands in this property. They really saw there was no, although it was close to another conservation area, they really had no interest as acquiring it for another conservation land. And the Planning Board had no reason to pursue it either. So that was a recommendation.
So normally we would get something in writing from each of those boards, and I think the assessors have to weigh in as well. And then it comes to select boards, so probably at our next meeting or the meeting thereafter.
I think part of the bigger part of the discussion in the meetings, I think Stephen actually brought this up during the planning board, maybe a little bit during the Conservation Commission meeting as well, and how we evaluate the tax ramifications of having these properties under Chapter 61 to ensure that by allowing these properties to be under this regulation, that we're receiving the benefit as a town. We should be, in terms of protection for the forestry or the agricultural land, and reviewing that those properties should be in that state during the period in which they are allowed to be. So, making sure that the townspeople are getting what what they're paying for in the reduced taxes of other people in town by having these properties in that state.
And is there a method to was there a method to calculate that? Or, I'm a little confused on the,
I'm confused about that too,
Methodology.
Dan, what you're saying specifically.
Yeah, I think that, well, the discussion was around how do we, as a town, go about ensuring that those properties are regularly checked to be in this category, if they're meeting the criteria, and
well, everybody has to apply on a
That's
chapter
right.
thing, they have to apply yearly, right? And
Correct. Yes, there's an application, and it's
Yeah.
required on a yearly basis, and the question is, are we looking closely if they say they're doing something like growing something agriculturally or haying or something? Are we going out and measuring? Not in every case, no, we're not. We're accepting that maybe we can be looking a little more closely at that to make sure that they're complying with what they say they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably something, and I can certainly bring it up with the Board of Assessors to say, can we look at this a little more closely if it's questionable? But there's a lot of chapter lien applications in our town.
Well, and you may be able to tell from near mapping, if nothing else, rather than a real
Well,
site
that's if
visit,
it's
too.
agricultural, but if it's open space and recreation, are people being allowed, if they say they're
Yeah.
allowed to go on publicly, if it can be a checkpoint, that can be looked
Yeah.
at. What were you going to?
Well, you can be absolutely passive with your open land and still qualify for chapter, at least under 61B. And based on my short term with the Board of Assessors, what I saw is that both staff and board review every single application as it comes in. So again, with the caveat that we're not looking at income and expense sheets, it's well understood which properties are in, which properties are out. What is, I thought Dan was going to raise is when I asked the question of the conservation agent, what the price was associated with this withdrawal, he had no information. So this is an unusual case where it's an unusual set of circumstances, but it seems they each are.
Okay. Well, we will see it whenever it comes to select board at this point, because we still have to wait for all the commissions
Right.
to report in and then send us letters or emails or something to say what their decision has been.
Yeah.
Okay. Cindy?
Well, let me start with Board of Assessors report. First of all, let me start with that specific property that the letter from the attorney has come to withdraw it for conversion for a residential purpose. And we waived our opportunity to speak that at our most recent meeting, pending a little more research. So that's going to come at a later date, and we will submit in writing our decision as the Board of Assessors on that particular property. Secondly, from the Board of Assessors, we've already heard from our principal assessor regarding tax classification. The third thing to report is that more than once, while I've been on the Board of Assessors, I've been approached by people that have said, are we getting all the taxes we should be getting, or the other financial benefits, or even other benefits from Hoyok Waterworks, which owns or has some kind of access to a large number of acreage in our town, essentially surrounding the Ty Carmody Reservoir. And there are multiple documents, letters, deeds, and acquisition dates such that it's very, very complicated. And I went in with somebody the other day just to try to sift through them. I do not have the background to be able to understand these. So we, the Board of Assessors, asked for a little more opportunity to hire somebody to be maybe a title search expert or someone to kind of really create a report of what we're getting. I will say our newly hired administrative assistant, Kathy McGowan, I'm going to call out and say she has got a background as a paralegal, and she also knows how to read deeds, and she's been able to uncover some documentation that hadn't been in the file and has been just sort of revealed on a incidental basis. So we're looking now to find out if somebody wants to give us a bid for what it would cost to go through and really come up with a report and to make sure it fits within our budget. So that is a process underway right now. So that has to do with really understanding that's such a large number of parcels, and are we doing the right thing? Are we collecting the right things? So that's that. And so that's the Board of Assessors. The Open Space Committee has been approached by a couple of landowners of late to talk about whether they can be considered for some level of conservation of their property. It is confidential at this point. We don't have anything specific. I'm going to be meeting with a group of people related to one specific property in private session. It's not open meeting. It's not like we're going to have a quorum of the Open Space Committee a little bit later this week on one property. And another one, this was something that the Conservation Commission told us a couple of years ago they thought would be good to have because it directly abuts other conservation property. And there's been a change in the family structure of that particular ownership. And they reached out to me, and in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go back to that family. They're in the process of kind of figuring a lot of things out. So that's what's going on with the Open Space Committee, and we continue to look at the Open Space and Recreation Plan to make sure we're, really complying with what's in that plan as we go forward, renewal being in a couple of years. The other one is the Board of Health. I wasn't able to attend the most recent meeting, which was the same evening as the recent national election, but I did get a report from the chair. A lot of things are happening with the Board of Health. I'm told that whooping cough is spreading among children and adolescents throughout the state, I guess. And then the Board of Health is acknowledging an advisory that came to them about that. They're going to be hosting, or they did, I guess, host a flu and COVID clinic, and that went well. Their agent has been following up on a number of properties or reports of issues, and they were reviewing those. Some of them have resolved pretty well, and others are still under review. I'm looking at this email that's come to me, and I know apropos to what was previously reported, all boards and committees and departments are looking at budgets, and I'm trying to get my arms around what's required for the Board of Health budget. So that's not something I can report on, but we really need to understand what is involved in that, because I'm seeing in this report that some of the agents' work, the health agents' work is not necessarily able to be a fee collecting opportunity, so that the expense is not being paid for by fees. So this is what I'm understanding. So I, again, don't feel I have a full understanding of this myself. So I'm just saying this is under review right now from my standpoint.
And if I recall, when we did our budget, we gave them a little bit of grace period to be under the town budget, if I'm not mistaken, but then they were going to be pulling costs for the agent from another budget line that was one that they managed. Was that right, Scott, I think?
Yep, the
That was
revolving.
my understanding too, the revolving fund, but I can't report very
So that was-
specifically on that right now. They're just
Well,
telling
the
me.
point is that, we need to be covering costs for,
I think they ran out of the initial 10,000 seed money either in September or October, so they should be able to have those 3 months of fees to be self-sufficient at that point.
Okay,
okay.
so I don't have any more specifics
That's it?
on that. That's all for me.
Okay. My end, we need to get a master plan meeting update going, not an update, a meeting going, so we'll probably schedule that for the first week or 10 days of December, so that'll be the master plan committee. We meet quarterly these days and just take a look at where things are with the master plan and the various goals and objectives that have been laid out and how the various departments are progressing on those. We are going to be probably very busy with grants coming up. We have a grant meeting set up on the 18th. That'll be our usual Zoom meeting. The firefighters assistance grant is open, Mass Trails is open. We did put in an expression of interest on the municipal vulnerability preparedness grant, and basically put in just request a concept for the idea of getting a feasibility study done for up to 3 locations in town, most likely the school, here, possibly at the church, but to hire a consultant to help us do a feasibility study to figure out whether we could develop something for a heating and cooling center in town. The challenge is that at Norris, for example, there is no generator. We do have a generator here. At Norris, there are 3 rooms that have air conditioning, and that's it, which is the library, the office, and 1 classroom. So we're not set up anywhere, but as climate change affects us, and maybe we'll hear more about that this evening when we get into that presentation, but we at least put in a concept request, and we'll get some feedback on that. The application is not due until, I think it's April, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if we get any positive feedback on that or not. A lot of work that has been done in the past from other towns that I was seeing is really related to flooding issues and those kinds of things, which didn't quite apply to us as strongly. So we'll see. And that had been actually a high priority in the MVP plan that had been done about 3 years ago now, was this heating cooling center. So we'll try to at least throw it out there and see what kind of reaction we get. The bylaw committee will be meeting on Thursday. So if there is something about the Concom one, if you could just shoot me an email, Dan, about what you need to have looked at there, because I think any changes like that, we will have to go through a special town meeting for a town vote on those kinds of things. We will be having the Brunn Historical people visit on the 20th, and that's to look at the old town hall. We've received finally the authorization to proceed with a grant from them for $96,000. I mentioned at the last meeting where another community had fallen out. So as the first alternate community, we moved in, and that is to look at restoring or repointing the brick on the lower part of the old town hall, putting in new mortar that meets historical preservation standards, et cetera. So they'll be coming out for a site visit to take a look at that in more detail. And then, let's see, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, we have the 3rd meeting of the 250th anniversary committee upstairs at town, second floor at 6 o'clock. Anybody and everybody's welcome. We've done some brainstorming. We've done some priorities setting in terms of this is what we really think we want to do, here's what we'd like to do, and then here's what we probably can't do. So we've got a chunk of activities that we're being pretty ambitious. We may need to whittle down, but at least we've gotten that far, and I think our goal tomorrow would be to try and take that #1 priority list and see if we can plop it into a calendar of some sort for fiscal or for calendar 25 and see what really makes sense in terms of what activities we might do. But we're reaching out. I've tried to reach out to various organizations in town. If I haven't found you yet, please come find me. And trying to find, some of our local groups, the SYAA, the Scouts, other people have put out word, but I'm not sure that everybody's getting contacted. So please, if I've missed you, don't feel slighted. Just reach out to us. But if you can come tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, that's great. And that's all I have. Cindy? No?
Can I just add one more report? I'm part of the Friends of the Southampton Council on Aging, and there was a very large turnout of our community for voting on voting day last week. And there was a raffle, and almost everybody that was asked participated in the raffle, and the Friends were able to collect as a profit over $3,000 for that. And I just want to publicly say thank you to all the people that have participated. It was great, and there were some happy winners too.
Yes, indeed. That's great. That is pretty amazing that there were that many people that had signed up on that. And I think just two other meetings coming up. We have the Public Safety Building Complex meeting. I believe it's on the 18th. And we also have the Senior Center Building Committee on the 14th. So those are the last 2 meetings that will be coming up for this coming week or so. All right. Good. All right. Let's get into some new business. Just in time. We have the Highway Department additional surplus equipment request for a 2007 Chevy. So, since Randall, you walked in, you want to talk to us, or Scott, whoever wants to take it?
Randall Kemp, Highway Superintendent. This is a vehicle that we didn't trade in. It wasn't an option with the new vehicle we got, so it's been taken out of service and declared excess, or hopefully declared excess, so we can get some of the value out of it before it degrades.
It's a 2007?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Do we need a motion, I think? To
Just
declare
a motion
excess?
to declare
Yeah?
excess.
Okay. We need a motion to declare this as excess property.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'd like to make a motion to declare this 2007 Chevy truck as excess property.
All right, motion by Dan, second? Second by Stephen. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's approved. Thank you. All right, other things, Scott. Update on the Montgomery gravel pit, if we know of anything more, or what we do know.
In general, it looks like it's paused for right now, any movement forward. I did try reaching out to the chair of the select board unsuccessfully. I also tried reaching out to a few other town departments, so we're still working on that. But I believe right now has been withdrawn.
I think it came to their ZBA.
Right.
And I believe it was withdrawn
Without prejudice.
without prejudice, so it can come back.
Right.
It can come back, and it most likely will come back, because whoever's bought the property, I'm sure they didn't buy it for nothing. So, but the residents on Montgomery Road, on Southampton Road to Montgomery, both on the Southampton side and on the Montgomery side, are very much opposed to the idea of a gravel pit up on that road and the traffic on this very kind of windy, narrow road going up the mountain. It is. And especially, just, I don't know that there's been any study done in terms of the amount of traffic, the number of, expected big trucks coming in and out, or any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, there's been a fair amount of opposition. If anybody drives up Southampton Road, you'll see signs at almost every household against it. So I guess the word finally got to town people in power in Montgomery, or at least the ZBA, to at least put a halt on it until they had a better understanding or a better plan coming forward to them. So it probably will resurface at some point in time, but from what we know, it's on hold. So thanks to also the Southampton residents that brought it to our attention. It's not really under our purview, but part of the road is Southampton property that Randall and crew have to maintain. And, it's not necessarily it's a paved road, but nonetheless, it can be a nice icy, slippery mess sometimes too in the winter. Okay, how about the sewer study update?
No updates on that yet.
No update on that. Okay, so that should be getting pretty close, I would think. I would think maybe by next month we'll have more information there.
I think they were aiming for first week of December for a kickoff.
Yeah, okay. So this is again the sewer study to look at the feasibility of extending the trunk line from Easthampton along the Greenway. So hopefully we'll hear more about that. So with that, we want to jump into the FY26 budget process. Could you do it in 15 minutes?
Oh yeah.
Occam's razor.
Let's see here. So for the budget process this year, I actually reached out to a lot of the other small town administrators throughout the state just to see what they use in their budget preparation materials, and a lot of really great letters they sent me a lot of great letters just for inspiration, and I'm happy to say that I stole a lot of the material. But this year I wanted to do a budget narrative for the departments, focusing on some key questions that each department would answer. Sorry, it's still a very rough draft, so the spelling and stuff is still not there, but I did circulate this to a couple of department heads, as well as Bradley and Tom in accounting, just to get their opinion on it. The idea is just to standardize everything so they can absolutely add additional information, but this is just to make sure that we get the highlights, and this will also tie into the budget book. So the first part's going to be used to write the text for the budget book. Just an overview of their responsibilities, what their goals and initiatives are for FY26, any budget impacts or changes, their alternative funding sources. So that's one of the areas that we also that we don't have enough transparency about, such as the Council on Aging, how much we actually use from our senior grant program from the state to actually fund the everyday activities and operations. Same thing with the library. A lot of their budget's done with gift fund from the Friends of the Southampton Public Library.
Some of the parks as well, I believe, and
Yep.
then of course fire and police apply for their own little grants that affect their budget as well.
So we want to kind of highlight that, and then any type of highlight on challenges that aren't necessarily related financially, but things like the accessory dwelling unit in the building department, what the assessors did this year with hiring the consultant, things like that may not impact the budget, but has an overall impact on the organization. And then the second part will just be more internally, although it's still a public document, what type of revenue that they collect, what types of fees they bring in, and how does that compare to other municipalities in the area. A little bit of a planning exercise. If they were to have the same exact budget as last fiscal year, no increases, where would they look to cut costs or improve efficiencies? Personnel, any changes to hours, additional positions, change in rates of pay, that's going to be more towards the compensation plan. Any requests for new services or changes, and any other additional information. So that's the budget narrative. And then the budget letter, still a work in progress. Hopefully we'll get it done by Thursday, but starting out just with a assumption that we're going to have level services this year, and this is just for the preliminary budget. When we get a little more into it, then we can kind of change to different ways that we can budget, but this is just for the preliminary budget for preserving the current level of services. And I had mentioned before going to a zero-based budget process, and this is somewhat of a step in that direction, but also to make sure that any costs are reasonable and responsible if they do have to over budget. A lot of times that we budget right to the penny for a lot of expenses, and that leaves a little bit of difficulty for everyday things, unexpected expenses or rising costs. Like I just got the BG mechanical contract for it runs on a calendar year, so I have to make sure that we have enough money in that. So just using historical data and what type of thing, if there's been any contracts that have been bid out or not, just kind of seeing, a reasonable amount of budget and if it can be explained or not. Personnel costs this year, I'm just going to do a placeholder until we finalize the comp plan, just a basic 2.5% to the wage scales and a COLA. Again, it's just for budgeting purposes. It's not actually going to impact it yet. And Bradley was able to put together a little bit easier our non-union wages and our grades. So that'll be distributed to everyone as well. Revenues, one thing I'm going to ask everyone is if they can just submit that their most recent department fees or any type of things that they charge the public, and if any increases might be justified, if there's anything that should be charged as a fee, and how does it compare to other municipalities in the area. We do have Megan was able to get the website up and running today, so that was great. So I'm going to do a centralized location for everything where all the forms and documents and all the information is going to be for the public and all the different versions. So preliminary budgets, first budget, second budget, all the revenue estimates, everything will be online for everyone to see, and there'll be one central area for everyone to look at that. Budget narrative, like I mentioned, and then the budget book that I talked about a few meetings ago. Just 4 to 5 data sets from each place that has a budget. It's the first year of doing this, so we're not looking to go too in depth, but things like, how many fires did the fire department respond to? How many merit certificates did the city clerk issue? How many building inspections did the building inspector do? Just things like that to kind of just show an overview of how busy people are. And we're just going to ask, just going back for a couple of years, hopefully 5 years, just to show a real trend. And then we have the budget calendar, and then everything for the boards and committees and departments that have employees. Bradley was able to set up a shared folder that everything will be provided to, so accounting, library, and we're going to do each department, and we'll be able to work off of one sheet for everyone. So if there's any changes, it'll be updated for everybody, so we don't have any confusion in the future. So this will be the official absolute budget that we're going to be looking at. And then Bradley and Tom have been working on updating the templates as well. So they're looking at all the historical data from the last 4 to 5 years, what they originally requested, what they ended up spending, and then they'll input it into what the request is for this year as well.
That's great. Wow. And when is the budget call going out then? When are you going to call for the budget? And when do you release all this?
We're going to kick it off on Thursday with the department head meeting to go over this. And then we have a board and committee meeting for any board or committee that has a budget, just so that they can get used to the process and I can go over everything. Hopefully I can finish this up and send it out tomorrow for everyone to review in case they do have any questions, but we'll be doing that virtually on a Zoom meeting. So I just asked everyone just to have one person just to attend. It should only be 10 to 15 minutes.
And when will budgets be due in?
That will be December.
I forgot your calendar, sorry.
I'll post the calendar on the website too.
Yeah.
December 19th. And then one thing I do have to loop into it is the capital budget as well. So we're going to use all the old capital forms this year. But I'm going to distribute that as well, and we'll have it on the same due date.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions?
I like the sound of it.
Question, so the boards and committees, that's the brief meeting that's on Thursday, correct? Evening, okay. I wasn't sure if that was a different meeting, okay.
Right, yeah. No, I think what's is interesting, I think, is to have more uniformity in a budget narrative. I mean, some departments have been very extensive in their budget narratives. Others have given us a short paragraph, and it's kind of hard sometimes to really understand what the real issues are. So I think the kinds of questions you're asking here should help them think through some of their own thought process, right? Their rationale for what they're asking for. I'm hoping that'll be somewhat more clear. And I think if anything, the one thing that we've always requested is that we have in the budget sheet somewhere that, here was the budget asked for, approved last year, here's the actual spending, so that we can understand, is there a line somewhere that maybe, we're really under budgeting. I mean, oftentimes we've under budgeted the tree warden, for example, but other times we've over budgeted something and we seem to have a fair amount of money. But again, lots of things happen during the year that, can lead into that. But it's very helpful to have not just what was approved, but then an actual spending column in there as well, up to whatever time it is. And I think the challenge, I know from this side of the table, has been when we do have contracts, because most of them are not necessarily within our just a fiscal year limitation. Some are calendar year. And so we've got starts and stops all over the place, and we've got half of it funded in, one fiscal year and half in another fiscal year. So I think it's really challenging to be sure that we have fully funded the contract correctly, whatever that contract is, whether it's BG Mechanical or something else, that we actually are funding that in the right amount in the right spot, because the start and stop dates are very confusing in many cases. So I think to the extent there was not to create more work, but to the extent there was a list of some of the typical contracts that we have, like a BG Mechanical or something else, it's like, even like Harper's or Vadar. I mean, when did it start? When does it expire? So that we kind of have that also visually. I think that could be a help to us too from this end. Be my thought. Anybody else? All right, great. Well, thank you for putting all that together. That's a monumental effort to get us going, but I'm feeling good about getting the process underway this year, and I think we will manage to do that. All right, we've got a few more minutes before the public hearing is supposed to start, so next 5 minutes. Is there any other business that can't wait until our next meeting on the 26th? Offhand, anybody?
Scott want to speak to the last page in our packet?
That might take a little bit longer.
Okay, or we may come back down to it? Okay, we'll come
I
back.
do have just the bridge update, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, so if there's nothing else, so under old business, if there's nothing new on the Stormwater Enterprise Fund or the Broadband Committee or anything like that, so the Manhattan Bridge update, so sure, let's go for that one.
So we did get the draft architectural drawings, engineering drawings in. I haven't circulated them yet, we just got them in. I'm going to send them to all the parties as well as some of the other engineers that have been helping us. It's only a draft, so once we approve it, then they'll stamp it with a Massachusetts engineering stamp, and then that'll be ready to go.
Okay.
So.
Now, just for clarity, this is still focusing on the same portable bridge that we've been planning on. The issue has been anchoring it into the riverbed, right? Or riverbank, right? So this is where they've come in with this design. Is that what they've done for us?
Yep, and
All right.
I'm not really an engineer, so I
Yeah,
can't
okay.
tell if that's a good
Yeah.
design or not, but
Yeah.
I'll have to trust them. But
Great, okay. All right, so you'll circulate that around to Concom and various other people that were involved? Very good, okay. Good. Capital asset planning, I think we talked about just very briefly. I mean, you want to use those same forms. Right now, I believe our capital improvement committee, if there's one member left on it, that would be it. I think they expired, and I don't believe anybody came forth for reappointment. So we may have to figure out a challenge on how the capital committee could function. We'll let someone in. Okay. Hopefully. Yeah, okay. So we may have to take a look at what we need to do to have, if we don't have any appointed members, how do we structure, whether it's the cost efficiencies committee or somebody from select board, somehow, I don't know who can not be a double entity on the capital committee here, but anyway, I think that's a question mark before us, because I don't think we have a functioning capital committee right now. Surplus equipment disposal, I think we have some news there. Let's hit that one up.
yes, Judy was able to receive $9 today for the old printers.
Oh, boy.
We did have a few other bids, though, that are going up, so we're going to have, a couple $10,000, $20,000 of stuff sitting around. I think we'd just be a little bit more proactive in this so it doesn't, poor Judy, it's been pretty overwhelming with her.
Yeah.
I do think we've probably spent more time putting it out for auction than we have received.
Yeah,
But
well, it's our first time really doing it, though, quite honestly. I mean, because this stuff has been laying around for years. I mean, and all the computer stuff that's been down in the basement. I mean, printers and microfiches and monitors and 50 mices and whatever else are down there. Nobody probably is really going to bid on them, or if they do, it's going to be a couple bucks, yeah.
Well, the person that actually picked up the printers, he works, his job is to work with special needs people to kind of refurbish these things. So
Okay,
he actually
perfect.
already made a list of other stuff that he saw in the basement. So
Oh, good.
he's waiting for it just to be posted.
Might be bid on it, good.
So it's going to good use.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question related to this? No, because we are a municipality, you have to do this whole process, put it
Right.
out to bid and everything, or is that just a
Yes.
decision that?
no, we have to go through municipal bid, and it's posted for 2 weeks. And if nobody bids on it, then we're allowed to dispose of it.
And how do we dispose of it if we have to end up, is it landfill, or what happens?
If it's electronics, we would have to do the recycling. And then if it's, some of our other stuff, office furniture, things like that, probably would be in the landfill.
Okay.
And we've had so far, I believe that I'm aware, 2 vehicles, 1 police cruiser and 1 truck from the highway department. So we've got, I forget, $2,000, $3,000 total probably on the 2 of those. So it's, it's taken time, but, we'll slowly get through it. But I think it's all encouraging. So it'll be good to just kind of clean house with a lot of this old stuff that's been hanging out forever that we've all been either putting in the back parking lot or tripping over downstairs.
Can I ask one more question, and maybe Randall can answer this? So when somebody in the town is getting rid of something like a monitor or a computer or something, and they bring it to the landfill, do we get this opportunity to see if some group is able to use it or build it or refurbish it, or is it just going to landfill? If it's something.
Well, we don't have a landfill. We have a transfer station, and we segregate different waste streams, like electronics all go in one dumpster that ends up going somewhere. If we have usable things, we do have a free cycling shed, a swap shop, people call it different things, that will put it in there for a couple of weeks, and if nobody picks it up, then it might go into the bulky waste dumpster. But we try to not
Yeah.
spend money on disposing things or have it go to a landfill, because obviously there's better places for it.
Thank you. Sorry. Thanks for calling you out on that.
Okay, very good. So with that, we will have stopped right there at the surplus equipment disposal, and I think it's 7 o'clock. So at this point, Scott will have you enter in a couple more people over there, or at least one I see on there. So we will, at this point in time, open up the public meeting for the hazard mitigation plan update, starting at 7 o'clock. We have a Zoom option here, so town residents can zoom in and follow the presentation. I believe they're not going to be participating in terms of speaking, but they should be able to hear us, hopefully.
They should be able to message as well.
And they should be able to send a message as well. All right. So we'll let Scott just fine tune that a minute. If somebody needs to send us a quick text saying that you can or cannot see us, let us know. And otherwise, let me introduce Mimi Kaplan from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Correct?
Thank you.
All right, come on up.
Presenting up here with the, or should I sit there? I did bring my laptop.
You want me to work the PowerPoint for you?
You can work the PowerPoint.
I'm
You speak
fine
it
with
there.
whatever arrangement
Yeah,
works.
probably you at the podium would be great, because you've got the microphone there, Mimi, and
Yeah,
we'll let Scott be your driver, maybe?
yeah. Sure.
We'll just have, guys, if we'd all keep an eye on whether there's another blue thing that pops up to admit anybody else coming in.
Is this making any difference?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to be talking about the hazard mitigation plan update process, and this is something I think we last did about 7 years ago, maybe?
8.
8 years ago, and it's something that, just for, until you get set up here, basically, once we have it updated, it allows the town to apply for various grants
I was going to let
that
in
we
someone
have.
else.
Yeah, this
sometimes not many
approved
do.
plan, and I'll explain this in the presentation. Having this approved plan allows you to apply for grants from FEMA, but going through the process allows you to identify actions that could be funded through other mechanisms as well. So, all right, should I start? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is the first public meeting of 2 required public meetings. So as you mentioned, the previous hazard mitigation plan was approved in 2016. So this is an update of that plan. So first I just wanted to thank the committee, which is the 7 people you see up here, who are attending all of the meetings, as well as providing input and information, and we'll be reviewing the plan when it's completed. You can go to the next slide, please, Scott. So this plan is funded by FEMA. So FEMA defines hazard mitigation actions as any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from natural hazards. So some examples of hazard mitigation actions could be limiting development in high-risk areas such as floodplains, retrofitting structures to protect them from hazards such as flooding or high winds. Drainage and flood control projects are a common one, and outreach and education, such as fire safety education. Next slide. So there are a number of benefits of going through this process and updating the plan. It's a bit of work, but like we mentioned, once you have an approved plan, it makes the town eligible to apply for funding from FEMA. And in identifying other mitigation actions and other possible funding sources, then you have other actions that you can pursue and other funding you can pursue. I think it does help, say you go for like an MVP grant. I think it is good to have, to to be able to say to them, well, this was a high priority action in our hazard mitigation plan.
I found there's a lot of overlap between the MVP and the HMP.
There's a lot of overlap. Yeah, and some towns have done it as a combined thing. But yeah, so it helps communities prevent future losses and save money on disasters. According to FEMA's data, not sure how they arrived at this, but they say approximately every $1 spent on mitigation can save $6 on future disaster losses. Makes Southampton more resilient to natural hazards and the impacts of climate change by implementing, mitigation actions, increases awareness of hazard and risks for residents, general population, and, in the case of severe extreme hazards, could save lives to have these actions in place. There's some overlap between hazard mitigation and emergency preparedness. So emergency preparedness are some of the things on the right, such as having shelters set up and evacuation plans in place and emergency communications. Hazard mitigation is broader, encompasses things such as regulation, planning, zoning, could be open space preservation, especially if it's land that can absorb floodwaters, stormwater, education and outreach, like I mentioned, and infrastructure improvements. Next slide, please. So the components of a plan, basically, these 5 areas are basically what make up the plan. So identifying hazards that could affect Southampton and describing them, and then assessing the risks to the town. So how would these hazards impact buildings, property, and residents, especially vulnerable populations, such as older adults, disabled, young children, low-income individuals. Identifying and mapping critical infrastructure. So PVPC's prepared a draft map, but the committee is in the process of reviewing it, but that will be included with the plan. And assessing the town's mitigation capabilities. So looking at, well, what do you have in place already to help mitigate hazards, such as administrative capabilities, access to funding, staffing, outreach capabilities, things like that. And then reviewing the previous mitigation strategies from the previous plan, and then identifying new mitigation strategies for the updated plan. The steps are basically what you see here. So about 5 committee meetings. The first public meeting tonight. Drafting the plan. Once the draft plan's complete, there'll be a second public meeting, which could be at the select board again, or it could be a standalone meeting. Submit the plan to MEMA. They may ask for some revisions. Usually they're minor. And then submit the plan to FEMA. Once FEMA approves the plan, then the select board adopts the plan, and then it's good for 5 years. And this is just an approximate timeline. We've already met 3 times this fall, and we'll meet probably 2 more times in the winter. And then we'll need a few months to finish up the draft plan, and then likely hold the second public meeting in the summer, early summer, and then submit the plan to MEMA. So it's a bit of a long process, but it's a long plan. I kind of mentioned this before. So the committee doing a number of things, providing data, information, input, assisting with outreach and stakeholder engagement for public meetings, and then helping to identify and develop and prioritize the new mitigation actions, and then review and comment on the draft plan. Next slide, please. So this is the hazard risk analysis table that is in the plan, and it's just a helpful way for the committee to think about, well, what are the biggest risks from the hazards that could affect Southampton. So at the last meeting, the committee looked at all of the hazards listed on the left hand side, and then for each one said, well, what would be the location of occurrence, meaning how big an area would it affect, small, medium, or large? And what is the probability of the hazard occurring just within the next year or two, so we're not looking way ahead. And that's based on, well, how frequently has this occurred in the past, and also based on, how our climate's changing, and some of these hazards are occurring more frequently, or they might be more severe. So assessing, to the best of our knowledge, what's the probability of it occurring from very high down to very low, and then the impacts. So could just be minor property damage, up to catastrophic could be deaths, multiple injuries. So assigning, kind of looking at, from, in some of those cases, worst case scenario, what would the impact be? And obviously there's a range, because the severity of these hazards can be a big range. And then looking at all that, they assigned each of these hazards a number, where 1 would be the highest risk and 5 would be the lowest risk, and nothing was assigned a 1. Severe snowstorms, ice storms were 2 to 3. And then there were a number of 3s, right? 3 3s, 3 4s, no, 4 4s. Sorry, you can read it yourself. I don't need to go through all the numbers.
I would just interject here. I mean, certainly the wildfire brush fires. I mean, I don't know. I would think that the fire chief would maybe rethink that one if that were a choice, because they've certainly been out straight for the last, 2 weeks at least, with brush fires around town and providing mutual aid to other communities. But we've had at least 4 things that I can think of right here in Southampton. So what was maybe a minor risk before, because of all of our dry weather this last year, has become much more prevalent, I think.
Right.
That's my
I think the reason he was saying it made sense to keep it a 3 was that none of these fires, have threatened any human lives. I'm not sure that there's been any major property damage either. So maybe thinking that they are fairly
able to be,
I won't say easily contained, but but of course, we don't know what the future holds.
But it just shows that things are changing in our.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, and it's a really big difference 8 years ago to now. So yeah, definitely some of these numbers changed.
And one thing we did have, we did invite Holyoke Waterworks to come in and talk about the potential of a dam failure, and I think that we were scheduling for Eversource to come in just to talk about what the impact would be for things like severe thunderstorms and ice storms as well. So we're not just throwing darts at a dartboard, so there's a little bit of science behind it.
Great.
Yeah, it was very helpful to have the Waterworks representative there to talk about the risk from dam failure. Unless there were other questions, we could move on. So just a little bit about how climate change is impacting natural hazards, like we were just talking about. So this is, and it is actually impacting, I would say, every one of those hazards other than earthquakes in terms of either frequency or severity or both. So that top graph is showing the change in the number of days per year over 90 degrees. Compared to the baseline. But what they say current is actually, they're using 1950 to 2013. So we're actually closer to the 2030, which is now up at about, and this is, when it says inland, it's looking at all of inland Massachusetts, so it might be better in Southampton than other parts of inland Massachusetts, like a lower area that's lower. So we're already looking at about maybe 15 days, and then looking ahead, by the end of the century, there could be almost 60 days over 90 degrees. And then the bottom graphic is looking at mid-century, mid to late century, end of century impacts. So for mid-century, the 1% annual chance of riverine flooding could become 3 times more likely to occur, and that would be for, streams, rivers, any, moving body of water. And then the mid to late century one projection is 65 fewer days below freezing, which, although that does have some benefits, it also creates some problems, such as with invasive species, ticks, just having much higher populations, reduced snowpack. So that can also impact infrastructure. And And then end of century, the 10% annual chance of a daily rainfall event of 2.6 to 4 inches could occur 4 times more frequently. And we're definitely seeing more of these events with very heavy precipitation. So some of those changes we're already seeing. And then this same report, this Massachusetts Climate Change Assessment, it described what the report took as the most urgent impacts of climate change for the Connecticut River Valley, which Southampton falls into, although you're on the border with the Berkshire Hilltown region. So I just circled some of the things that I thought would be most pertinent to Southampton. So damage to buildings and infrastructure from heavy rainfall and overwhelmed drainage systems, damage to electric transmission and utility distribution from extreme events, and then the impact on forests and just the environment in general of native invasive species being impacted, and which results in forest health degradation from invasive pests, extreme temperatures, strong storms. So then you have more dead trees, you have more fuel for fire, for fires, you have impacts to transmission lines, et cetera. And then costs, increasing costs. It says up here responding to climate migration, but I would say costs just in general in terms of infrastructure, road maintenance, just certain areas that you're spending more, most likely due to some of these hazards. So the plan looks at critical facilities as well as populations and assets to protect. So critical facilities meaning facilities that would be necessary for emergency response and also to keep the town running. So we're talking emergency response that's listed up on the top bullet. Utilities, communication facilities, healthcare facilities, and then also vulnerable or populations to protect, custodial care facilities, schools, housing for any kind of vulnerable population, historic structures, large places of employment where you would get a lot of people. Yeah, do you have a question?
Under utilities, I don't see high tension power lines. Yeah.
Oh, I think power is supposed to cover that, but that's not very clear. Yeah, maybe I should say power lines.
And telecommunications.
Right, yeah, like cell towers and, yes.
Buried line.
Oh, buried lines, yeah. Right.
So that all comes under power.
That would all come under critical facilities, and those are all in the plan, even though they're not listed here. But we went over and updated all of those at the second meeting. Yeah, but thanks, that's a good point. You can go to the next slide. So these were, there were 2 pages, but I only included the first page of the strategies from the previous plan. These are the medium. Actually, nothing was given high priority. So these were the highest priority actions. So that top one, implementing the strategies of the community development plan, dealing with protection of floodplain, forests, and farmland. And then the second one, for subdivision approval to include more requirements to utilize best management practices to handle drainage. Increasing site visits by the fire department for potential tier 2 hazardous material sites. So even though this plan deals with natural hazards, you could have hazardous material sites being vulnerable to hazards and causing more problems, natural hazards. Purchasing a portable generator and updating town buildings to work with the generator. So we actually haven't discussed these and what's been accomplished, but we'll do that at the next meeting. But then, so we'll go from here and add new actions for the update and for the next 5 to however long it takes to, update it again. But looking at what would be the priorities the priority actions over the next 5 or so years. So next slide, please. So now that's it for my presentation piece. And this is the public comment period, and also obviously to get input from the select board on what your concerns are about natural hazards and climate change impacts in Southampton, and also suggestions for mitigation actions that should be included in the plan.
Okay, good. Thanks. So we'll check folks here in a second, but Scott, just be clear, the folks that are listening in on the Zoom are able to write in on the chat rather than speak to us, is that right? Oh. Speak, just to write in, not to speak to us, or?
Right, just to keep things a little safer.
Yeah, okay. So if any of you folks that are on the Zoom, if you want to put a question or something, comment in the chat box, I guess, right, Scott?
Yep, it should show up.
And then we'll be sure to catch it while we're talking back here. But for the moment, any folks here on, first of all, on select board for commentary or questions? And then we'll actually ask anybody who's sitting here in the audience as well. But anybody? Cindy? Yeah.
I'm Cindy Palmer. I'm involved in the Open Space Committee, and I can't say I'm surprised that you're suggesting that open space be, acquisition of open space or preservation of open space be related to climate mitigation. I can't say I'm surprised, but I have to say it didn't get into my radar specifically. And I just wonder if there's ways that this committee or experts like yourself could help us understand what specific properties or you said, for example, absorption for runoff of heavy rain periods or whatever. How can we help identify some of those properties that would be ideal for the preservation in order to contribute to this whole mitigation process? You maybe can't answer that off the top of your head, but I wonder if there's ways you can look at our map, our Muni Mapper, and help
Yeah,
us
well, we
identify.
could certainly look at your maps from your open space plan.
Yeah.
We could also, maybe invite someone from conservation to come to a meeting, and they might.
Oh, yeah, we work
Be
closely with
helpful.
our Conservation Commission too, but is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, Conservation Commission, yeah.
Okay.
I work closely with Patty Gambarini, who's worked a lot with the town on drinking water supply, and some, I know there's been a lot of land preservation with Kestrel Trust, and so they might actually be helpful. Patty might be helpful.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to put that on our agenda to talk about how we can work on that specific aspect of it.
Yeah, and some of it isn't land protection, but, implementing green infrastructure
Yeah.
strategies, in areas where you would want to absorb floodwaters, like bioswales and, all those like little green areas.
Okay. Helpful, thanks.
Yeah.
Liz? Stephen?
I appreciate you're looking at the living environment in this. And as I look around this summer at least, I'm more impressed by the impacts of drought, pervasive impacts of drought, than the forest health issues. I mean,
Okay.
long list of pests and stresses, but if you look at the biomap for Southampton, I'm sure you have, the predominant feature of core habitat is not forested core, but it's aquatic core along the Manhan River. And I think that ought to be a particular focus of preventing degradation of this relatively low gradient but high quality river.
Great.
That's good.
Makes sense, yeah.
Good point. Yeah, Deb?
Thanks, thank you.
I noticed from your presentation, your presentation seemed to indicate a trend of hotter temperatures as well as heavier rainfalls during events. That makes me think of something we talked about earlier in this meeting, cooling stations for our townspeople, perhaps that's something, would that be covered in this plan?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And along those lines, shelters for storm events. That's
Yep.
something that this town could have planned out, or could look into having planned out, hoping that they never have to be used. I was interested that on the list of previous items, there was nothing that was high priority.
Yeah.
You know, why, do you think?
Because that would be a question for someone who was on the committee previously.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. I've actually never seen that.
Okay.
There's almost always high priority items. So, you know, I don't know if just nothing seemed really pressing.
Yeah, everything with medium was the highest level I saw, so gee, I just thought that was interesting.
previous one.
Yeah.
Unless there were some on the second page, but I mean, the thing that I know that was on the,
You were on the previous.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So I was on the previous committee, and anything that was high priority, we would take care of.
There
yeah.
you go.
So
So like for now, I was just going to say. that
it was
under-
glaring things. Like,
Yeah, under the MVP project, under the MVP plan, so the similar plan that overlaps, one of the high priorities was not only the dam possibility of dam breakage or whatever, but it was also the culvert issue, right? I mean, that's a study that's going on right now, is assessing all the culverts in town and the vulnerability there. So, I mean, there are things that have been taken care of, the repeater for communications on the mountain and,
Two
you
of the
know, various other
generators,
things.
two of the
Yeah.
generators listed have been obtained in the
Yeah,
meantime, so.
yeah.
We're
So certain
working
things-
through it.
Certain things have been dealt with, but you know, when you have a high priority, then that helps you as you go toward a grant request, right? If it's a medium or a low priority and you're competing with, at a FEMA level, you're competing on a national basis, it makes it a little bit tough to say, well, gee, this is only a medium priority for us when you've got many other communities that
pile on
have that,
with
so, yeah. So,
It's not wild,
Mike, just a second here.
it's not wildfire, it's structure fire that I want to add in, but in either case, where do you get the water? Our town, 40% geographic, 60% of the population is on public water. The implication of that is there's a large section of the town that doesn't have fire hydrants, so we need a pumper truck. And though we may have some ability to take a backcountry vehicle with some water, we presently rely on mutual aid for pumper. And I think there might be an argument to be made in here that a town of our assets, our configuration, needs to have a pumper truck or else we have a big vulnerability. And we have an active grant application.
Well, we applied for one last year through the Assistance to Firefighters grant, but did not make it. We didn't receive it. So we're going to apply again this year. Okay. And that's a federal grant, yeah.
So think about that duality. It's wildfire, but it's also structure fire. It's the inherent character of our town, that it's not got public water.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I got that.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
I had one more note,
Everywhere.
and it's something that the planning board has started to address with Patty Gambarini. You mentioned the water supply, and we brought up with PVPC getting the water supply protection jurisdiction defined and protecting the aquifer with collaboration with our neighboring towns. I think there could be something in here around our water supply and the protection of that water supply. If I were to guess, as an important item we'd want to address.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do we have anybody writing in comments at all? I'm not noticing I'm seeing anybody. So again, anybody that's sitting out there on the Zoom, you're welcome to write in a comment on the chat box. And I think we'll work it out. I think, Scott, we were talking about, even for those that are not on tonight but may listen to this meeting afterwards, we'll figure out a way where people can write into the town administrator with any questions over like the next week or 10 days or something like that. Because we have a certain number that kind of follow the meetings, but then there's others that tune in on the weekend and, you know, listen to the replay on Easthampton Media. So we may have other people that are not here tonight that would maybe want to ask a question or two. But while we're waiting for that, yeah, Bruce, you got a question, come on up.
Yeah, Bruce Bowman on Pomeroy Meadow Road. Just a couple of thoughts. One of them is just communication about this public meeting and how effectively it goes out to the town, and access to this slide presentation before the meeting so people can come and attend and have a sense of what might be coming, to be prepared to offer comments. So I don't know, that integration of dissemination of information ahead of time and have that electronically available before a public meeting so you know what's going to be discussed.
The notice went out both on Facebook and on the community Facebook page, as well as the town Facebook page, as well as the website, but a draft presentation, because it was considered a draft, I think only select board actually saw it.
And, prior community that I lived in, we had better access to local paper. And I don't know how easy it is for Southampton to have access to the Gazette and post information like this about public meetings coming up. I read those. I do share so I didn't follow the conversational thread about this plan and the MVP plan and the pumper truck. If you change your risk categorization of a one priority for a pumper truck, does that make the town more eligible on a grant application that it was identified in this setting as a high priority, and therefore does the grant application have more meat or substance by having identified this as a high priority item? That's a question.
I would think so, but you probably know better than I do.
Well, I would definitely say for MVP, an MVP grant, I'm not as familiar with the.
They should go to the mic so that people can hear this.
Sorry.
I was saying, I definitely think if you were applying for an MVP grant, that it would be helpful to have it listed in this plan as a high priority. As I'm not familiar with the grant that you were applying for the pumper truck. I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, that would offer justification on the grant.
Right.
It's already been identified. And I do share a real concern about the drought. In trying to get rid of the down leaves on my property, I'm out there with my riding lawnmower, trying to grind some of them up and put them in the bagger. And as I'm going along, they're piling up, and I started a fire underneath my little riding lawnmower. I was able to put it out, no big deal, didn't need to call anybody. But while I don't know enough of the map of Southampton, and you identified the Manhan River areas as high value area, I would say the rest of the forested part of Southampton is of equal value and at equal risk. And fire risk is high on that. And anyway, that's
Good.
That's all.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. We have a couple comments over there, Scott.
From Aaron.
Aaron? Yeah.
Aaron, can you hear us?
Nope. Volume.
Is she mute or is it volume?
Hold on.
We can't hear you.
Easthampton Media, hopefully. What happened? Okay. Hang in, Aaron. Can you hear us, Aaron?
Yes.
Speaker on the bottom toolbar is X'd out.
Oh, thank you.
No, that'll be feedback here.
Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Maybe she can put in the chat.
He's trying to do something.
Easthampton Media is working on it behind the scenes here. Maybe.
Basically, I can't put it in the chat.
Okay.
We got it.
Okay.
I can't access the chat.
Can't access the chat. Okay, well, go ahead. We can hear you, so go ahead.
That was all I wanted to let you know, because you're not getting any comments. It's because I don't think anyone can find, I don't know if anyone else can. I'm a teacher. I've used Zoom a lot. Can't find a chat feature anywhere. Tammy, can you see the chat feature?
No, I cannot. It does not come up. I wanted to let them know that we definitely need to have this presentation put online for us to look at because you could not read any of it.
I said the same thing on the town Facebook page. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it put up on the town website, as well as I said, make clarity for how people can continue to ask questions and send questions into Scott. Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening on that side.
I think the important thing to say is this isn't the only opportunity Town will have to comment on this.
Can't speak that.
Oh, so this isn't the only opportunity that the townspeople will have to comment on this, so don't feel that your voice will not be heard if you're unable to communicate through the Zoom and see the presentation board. Okay?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, there is going to be a second public meeting, so that will be widely publicized.
Yep. We do have a reporter for the Gazette that would be glad, I'm sure, to cover this too. So we can reach out and make sure that this is more widely publicized.
We did send out a press release.
Yeah.
PVPC did, but nobody picked up on it for whatever reason.
We have a good writer at present.
Yeah, so she might.
Yeah, I think the three areas that you're all commenting on are how we can prevent wildfires, right? The protection of the Manhattan River, as well as protection of the water supply. Those are the areas that I think we as a board have recommended we add to this, or address in here.
Yeah. But I think it will be important if people, certainly I know this is a bit hard to read when you're on the TV screen, so this will be posted on the town website, and we will make provision for how people can write into an email address, probably Scott's or some other email address, to post any comments or questions. So this will be, let's say that we'll have it up for another, couple weeks? I mean, I don't know, maybe until our next select board meeting or something.
And hopefully you can see the video.
Yeah, the video might be better than that, so you might watch it on YouTube or if you're not on 191. Okay, good. Any further thoughts or comments from anybody here?
Good work.
No, if not, thank you, Mimi, for coming tonight and getting us at least started on this, and we look forward to the work that you and the team are doing to pull it together and hopefully get us a plan. And the plans are good for 5 years or 7 years?
5 years. It's the open space plans that are good for 7 years. Okay. I wish it was good for 7 years, but it's 5.
Yeah.
Unless they change it.
Okay.
2016 was the last approved plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just about every community, I'm working with many communities right now on these, and almost all of them last updated their plan in 2016 because everything got delayed by COVID.
Yeah.
So everything and then it takes a long time to get the funding from FEMA.
Yeah.
Like it took like a year, I think.
Yeah, over a year for us, I think. Yeah. I think we actually got some notification maybe in 22. I'm thinking fiscal 20 or calendar 22.
Yeah, so the whole thing's just been a little bit delayed.
But I think it might have been a longer time period though, early on. I'm thinking it might have been more than 5 years at that point in time. I was thinking it was a 7-year time that it had to be renewed. Similar to the open space, but it might have shortened now. But anyway, no matter what, it'll be nice to have an updated plan and just focus on the real realities today, because definitely things have changed over the last almost decade. So.
Yes.
Yeah, and who knows what's happening in the future, right? So, good. Well, thank you for coming. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody who tried to attend. We appreciate those that tried to zoom in, and we will do better next time to get that more manageable for you all to write in. And thanks for those that had questions here tonight. Okay, next couple of items maybe that we have. I think the only one that we haven't really talked about on our old business is the FY23 audit status. You've talked about the green energy already, and I don't think we had any other updates. So is anything happening with the FY23 audit so far?
No, everything's just in the town accountant's responsibility just to answer a few more questions, so should be all set with everything else. We're just waiting for Bradley.
Okay,
And then we'll get the final report, or the draft report.
right. So everything is on schedule from your point of view, at least? I mean, where we should be? Okay. Yeah. And they won't have started FY '24 yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay. So we're still working to close out all the books on FY '24, right? Okay. All right. I don't know that we have any other agenda items here. We have select board meetings on, well, the special meeting to go over the budget with boards and commissions is going to be on this Thursday, and that's posted, and you'll get an email out, or you probably already have, to the various commissions and boards to join in on that so they understand what they have to do for their budget presentations. Our next regular select board meeting will be the 26th of November. And then we have definitely a meeting on December 10th, and we may have to take a look at December 24th.
You're the one to not do that.
That's my birthday, so I won't be here, I'll tell you that. So, and then other than that, I think that's all we have for tonight's agenda, unless anybody has anything. So we will actually adjourn and go into an executive session. And the reasons for executive session will be per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, highway superintendent, and town accountant. And MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And this is for the highway union. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting and go into executive session. Could I have a motion, please? Okay, motion by Stephen. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cindy. Again, approval by a roll call vote, please.
Johnson, aye.
LaValle, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Fowles, aye. And we are adjourned in public meeting and won't be coming back after our executive session. We're adjourned at 7:42. All right, thanks. Let's take a minute or two stretch break.